Hey everybody, Coach here. As you know, this channel is also dedicated not just to landscape design concepts and theories, but also to self-reliance. And part of that self-reliance concept comes from having a landscape that helps you with a sustainability approach to a yard in the way of going from ornamental, meaning it takes your time, it looks great, but it doesn't ever give you anything back, to transitioning through a paradigm shift to where you have a nice blend of ornamental landscape and you go off into maybe a balance of 50-50. Something that gives you something back and yet it does not detract away from any of your beauty, does not detract away from the value, and it has about the same maintenance level as your ornamental landscape. Are you interested? Because that's what this week is all about. Using a master plan concept from designing to transition from something 100% ornamental to a certain percentage of ornamental and sustainable landscapes. It's time to put your creative thinking caps on and getting ready to do a little due diligence and research to find out exactly what level of sustainability you would like to have. And how are you going to change your landscape in order to accommodate that new sustainability? Very, very important. We're going to cover that here today. Let's get started, shall we? Hey, I'm Matt. You can call me Coach. You know, every week I bring to you landscape design theories and concepts in an easy to understand format so you can get professional results, save a lot of money in the process, and be more self-reliant in this day and age. You know, after a 20-plus year career in the green industry as a manager and designer and contractor, I bring with me a lot of knowledge and experience that I want to share with you guys, that new, modern, self-reliant, educated homeowner of today. So over the years of a green industry career, I have heard a lot of chatter from folks, both face-to-face during consultations over the years, at the nursery, and also online most recently. And I hear a lot about, gosh, I really wish I could have a fresh picked blah, blah, blah. Maybe it's a peach or maybe a cherry or a fresh pulled carrot or radish or whatever. Whatever it might be, I've heard this off and on. And yet people never, ever entertain the idea seriously unless they do bring a professional in to transition from that backyard that allows the kids to run around, allows Fido to go out and do his business, and a patio there that you can sit out and have a barbecue once in a while, but it never gives you anything back except visual beauty. Well, that's what we're talking about here today, and we're going to talk about doing this by the use of a master plan and a design concept where you can transition from that ornamental side to whatever degree of sustainable landscape you would like to have. Okay, hold on a second, Coach. You just threw another new one at us. What is this master plan concept? Well, the master plan concept came from years of designing experience that I had. And I found when I first got into the business for myself that some people still did things themselves, but they just didn't have that creative brain side that would get them from where they were at to where they wanted to be and a roadmap to get them there. And that's what a master plan is all about. And that's what I want to educate with you this week is getting yourself a master plan. Either doing it yourself, which I think most everybody can do, or you can have it done by a professional designer, like yours truly did for many, many years. Giving those people a roadmap on paper so they know that they can go out and do it themselves. Just follow the plan. Follow the plan, plan the work, and then work the plan. So this is where a little bit of futuristic thinking, little creative thinking, a little bit of road work, and a little bit of exploitation of the nursery professionals out there to get some ideas as far as what actual plant material you could use in your particular environment. Now, when I'm talking about sustainability, I'm talking about something that you would be able to remove ornamental and put in sustainable. For instance, maybe you have a small boxwood hedge out in the backyard, and the boxwood hedge, although nice, you know, maybe it just doesn't serve a purpose, and you'd like to exchange that out for a hedgerow of blueberries, something along that lines. Or you've got 2 or 3 crepe myrtles out there in the front yard, and instead of the crepe myrtles, perhaps 3 semi-dwarf cherry trees might be more along the line. Maybe you get cherry pie for Memorial Day weekend, something along that lines, and that's where I want you to go. You know, sustainable landscapes are a concept that was quite the rage back when I first got in the industry, back in the 1970s. And we took plants like artichokes, rhubarb, semi-dwarf and genetic dwarf fruit trees, and we were taught to weave and blend those into an ornamental landscape, sometimes from a brand new yard concept where there's nothing there, and then sometimes in an existing landscape where some things were going to come out and then sustainables were going to put in. Here's a couple things I want you to consider before you even put a shovel in the ground, put a chainsaw to a tree, or anything else. Some things that you have to consider. Number 1, before removing anything, try to predict what the environment is going to be and how is it going to change once those mature parts of your ornamental landscape are removed. Once that large birch tree or that pine tree or whatever it might be, once that gets removed, the area that that tree is affected is going to throw a big environmental change at you. You're going to have more sun versus shade. You're going to have maybe more wind, maybe more heat. And what can you do with that as far as your sustainables versus your ornamentals? And that's something you got to consider. Another design theory is, what are you going to leave in place versus what are you going to take out and put in? That's the blended concept of the master plan and how it's going to come to bear on your landscape. Another thing is, through conversation and discussion with everybody involved, what percentage of the ornamental landscape do you want to convert to your sustainables? Maybe you want to have a 50-50 type of blend. Maybe you want something that is ornamental in the front yard, but much more sustainable in the backyard, or vice versa, depending. If you have a real rural environment, it can be a blend of both front and back. If you're on acreage, nice to be the king with having that much room. You can do just about whatever you want. Another thing to consider is, what kind of landscape infrastructure are you going to have to augment or amend in order to accommodate some of these new sustainable features that you want to put in? Will irrigation have to change because maybe you're taking the lawn out? Will part of the patio have to get changed because you're going to have to put in semi-dwarf fruit trees on the corners and you need just a little bit more room? Everybody's environment is different, and this is where that due diligence and planning and then committing it to a master plan is going to come in really, really critical. And then finally, know your limitations. Clint Eastwood said it best.
Man's got to know his limitations.
Right? A man's got to know his limitations. Well, in this particular case, you do too. Everybody has a creative side that they can learn, but if this is something that you're looking to implement this fall, next spring, next summer, whatever, do you need to enlist the help of a professional designer to have them come in and be that guiding light and that tip of the spear to get you from, this is what we're thinking about doing, but we're not exactly sure how to get there. They can get you and bridge that gap and then present you something of a roadmap so you can do it yourself from that point on. When doing some of the creative thinking and maybe putting something down on paper in the form of a plot plan, another key concept is determine what type of sustainability plant material really works for you. A lot of people, maybe they already have a few fruit trees and they don't need any more. Maybe somebody just wants to go from maybe a planter bed to an herb garden, and that's all they really want. Maybe they want some fresh rosemary, or maybe they want some thyme, oregano, basil, mint, whatever it might be, maybe that's your bailiwick and that's what you have to strive towards. One of the things that we used to do a lot back in the early designing days in my career was we used to stretch the concept, and instead of having border plants that were annuals, we would punch in our design saying we're going to have butterhead lettuce there instead. Instead of having a row of marigolds, we are going to amend that soil and we're going to put in a row of Nancy carrots, whatever it might be. And believe it or not, that paradigm shift is coming back into vogue. And I'll tell you what, there's really nothing more rewarding than after you've transitioned and you've committed to this blend of sustainable and ornamental. You will love it when you have to go out there on a weekend or an evening before dinner and you get to pull a head of lettuce, a few radishes and carrots, maybe a bell pepper or whatever it might be from their locations that you've installed these in, and you take them in for your own fresh salad along with the rest of your meal. This is where sustainables really come into a rewarding way of having a new and different kind of landscape. Another concept is space. Now, we all don't have 2 acres of space. And some of us live on 50 by 100 foot lots and sometimes even smaller. So you have to determine what type of sun exposure you have versus shade exposure, what type of growing season you have as far as weeks or months, and then how much room do you have to bring in these sustainables. If you're on a small backyard lot, but maybe you have a southern exposure, you happen to be in an area where maybe true dwarf citrus can survive throughout the wintertime, maybe a nice big container planted up with a true dwarf citrus like a Owari Satsuma mandarin or something like that, something really, really yummy, and then have the big container underneath filled with, you know, red leaf lettuce or radish or creeping rosemary spilling over the container. You know, your imagination is really your only limitation. The other thing about sustainables is they're really a great landscape plant. One of the houses I had in Northern California, the backyard, it had one of the most beautiful ruby red grapefruits ever. And when I took over that property, I had to do some pruning and some heavy pruning at that. But the next year and the years after, it was a gorgeous landscape tree. And I put some uplights underneath that thing, and I had a little pondless waterfall nearby and a little sitting area underneath the grapefruit. And as Maestro will attest to, that had some of the beautiful, most beautiful grapefruits ever. And you lit that thing up underneath at night with its beautiful dark scaffolding and the grapefruits hanging in there. It was really very, very attractive. But before you get to those points, you have to make the commitment. And it's not a half-hearted commitment because you're going to be removing, you know, many parts of your ornamental landscape. You may be changing parts of your infrastructure, your drainage and irrigation, as I mentioned before. But you give that a season or two and the reward will start to come back to you. And honestly, putting something like that that has a nice blend of ornamental and sustainable landscape, the value of your property can only go up. You have a little bit of everything for everyone. They have something they can pick and something they can look at. So what about the maintenance, Coach? What happens if I put in some peach trees and cherry trees and that kind of stuff? Where's the maintenance level? I don't have to do much to this crepe myrtle right now, but what do I have to do to this cherry tree? All right, full transparency, right? You may have to learn how to do a little bit of pruning. A new skill, yay, right? Not that much, no more than you would have to do on crepe myrtles if you wanted to keep them in shape, or any other type of ornamental hedges and bushes, same type of thing. The time of year is a little different. Maybe if you have stone fruits and other things, you might have to spray a couple times in winter and early spring to ward off things like peach leaf curl. And there's a lot of good natural remedies for that in there. Check them online. I just read one the other day. I speak to you this way because of the experience that I have, not only in designing, but I live this life as well. You know, before Maestro and I sold Weed Patch Ranch, we had over 60% of the ranch in sustainable, harvestable type of stuff. And I'll tell you, from a professional standpoint, I'll tell you a mistake that I made. And the mistake that I made is I designed too many of one things. We had a dozen ultra dwarf peach and nectarines. We could have done with just 6. And we had way too much harvest. 2 big plum trees, semi-dwarf plum trees, and they were both self-fertile. And no matter what we did, we could not eat enough plums, and we could not can enough plums. There was too many that fell, and a lot of it had to get rid of. A lot of stuff we gave to friends and neighbors, that kind of stuff. The olive orchard that we had more olive oil than we could possibly ever use, and we were constantly giving that away, much to the happiness of family and friends. But you have to know what your limits are. If you're a family of 6 and you consume a lot of fruit and vegetables, then you can go a little bit bigger. If you're an empty nester like we are, yeah, you got to downsize it just a little bit. Maybe a couple of peach and nectarines, maybe 2 cherry trees, a couple of apple trees, and call it good. But when it comes to rotating type of crops, say like radish and carrots and lettuce and that kind of stuff, you can use that as much as you see fit. Maybe you just want to do the lettuce in the late winter, spring, and early summer, and then give it a rest, you know, and you let it go until the following year and do something else in that area. If you have arbors and that kind of stuff, consider those viners and twiners in the vegetable world, like beans and cucumbers, and you can literally grow them up over arched arborways and stuff. Very easy to do. You know, as far as filler landscape plants, get into the thought of espalier cherry tomato and boxed tomato plants that are set out into large beds. And you keep them contained. You don't let them go, you know, ass wild all over the landscape. You keep them somewhat contained. And you can go out there and step over your perennials and do a little harvest and take them inside. That's that blend between ornamental and sustainable. So let's review just a little bit before we say goodbye for this week. Number 1 thing is going to be your research, your master plan, and your commitment. Number 2 is selecting the sustainables that best work for you and your family. Create or have created a master plan roadmap so you can do it in increments that fit your time and your budget. Be patient with yourself and be patient with the transition. You have to do it at your pace, nobody else's pace. It may take a year, it may take 2 years for you to go from 100% ornamental to 50% sustainable, depending on the amount of time allocation and resources you have to throw at it. Sharpen your skills and broaden your creativity a little bit. Enlist the help of your local nursery professionals, but by all means, make sure that you patronize those people that take care of you and educate you and show you the correct plant material that will really work for your project. I'll tell you one thing that I've seen exponentially, and that is when people do decide to do this, it's kind of like buying that boat. They buy a little boat at first and they love it so much, they trade it in, they get a little bigger boat, and then they say, oh, this is what we really like to recreate on, and they get a 3rd bigger boat. This is what you might find as far as sustainable landscapes. Maybe you start off with 30% and you go, whoa, this is really cool. Let's up it to 50, then let's up it to 70. But everybody's different, and you'll have to decide what percentage you want to strive for. This is one of those great things that the whole family can get in on. And I'll tell you what, after you transition a certain percentage over to sustainability, and the first time you take your son or daughter out there, or you take your grandson or granddaughter out there, and you start harvesting, you start picking, you start sampling that little freshness in the world that is giving back to you now, that will be the ticket that you know you did the right thing for yourself and your landscape. Hey, as always, I'm always here. If you have a question and you'd like to get something answered, the email is always listed below. Feel free to reach out. Don't forget about the book that's always on sale and the digital course if you'd really like to sharpen your pencil to take on new and bigger projects all the time. 15-stepper is right there as always for you too. Don't forget, ornamental is good, but that blend of ornamental and sustainable is a great landscape concept, and I hope it works out for you. Guys, I will catch you next week as always. Thank you, take care, and to your landscape success.